Isha Gupta, everyone. Make some noise for Isha. Isha, you can take the center. Yes, just be at the center so that all of your panelists are in your view. And now let's welcome a group of voices who have been sourcing meaning in the world of design. We have Jasmine Zaveri, principal designer and founder of Jasmine Zaveri Living. Meeta Mehta, founder and principal designer of Meeta Mehta Studio. We have Ritika Jasrani, interior stylist and spatial decorator. Sanya Tadha, interior stylist and curator. And Maithri Shah, who's the founder and creative director of My Stories. Everyone, please give it up for our panelists. You know, this is an energy exchange, right? You give them a round of applause and they give you some great ideas and insights. All right, so our panelists are ready. And so are our questions. Just make sure you're sitting right in the center of that box and you will be perfectly fine. Yes, just sit right in the center, all right? This is sort of a core workout for all of us today. All right, Isha, you ready? Okay then, over to you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Design POV is something that's been very close to my heart because Asif and I go way back, and when we discuss what Design POV is about, he really came up with something so innovative, Asif and Gagan both. So we're really excited to be here. And I feel like the art of sourcing is something, again, which has brought me somewhere into design. And I'm so excited to talk to these 5 amazing women about sourcing because I know how tough it is. And I know the intricacies that go behind it. So we're going to get started. And I'm going to go a bit off script. So I'm sorry, the first question, because I was chatting with Sanya. And I was very inspired about her journey into styling and sourcing. So, Sanya, if you could start, because we were having this conversation earlier, but how did you come about into this journey?
So basically, I'm a chemical engineer by profession. I'm an IIT grad, and I always had this photography thing in my mind. So just after delivering a baby, I just went to learn the photography just to get out of the pregnancy phase. And that's where like my mentor found out that I have something which is not even known to me. So he pushed me literally for 2-month course to continue with him for a longer period of time. And he was basically a Nikon Gujarat chapter executive. Right now he's like a scholar, and he showed my work to Nikon India, and that's where the comments came. She's a very good stylist. When my mentor introduced, she's a photographer, they were like, she's a very good stylist. That's how all this journey has started, and I guess they pushed me literally into the industry where I don't know about anything of interior also.
Wow. So as a woman, as usual, we wear many hats. I think that's what it comes down to. Maithri, what about you?
Can you hear me? So I was just telling Ritika that I was in New York and I was working in finance. So I was a data analyst, and I used to walk this really long walk home, which was like an hour and a half long. And every time I used to walk, I used to see these beautiful restaurants have these tables where there used to be an Estee Lauder dinner or a beautiful dinner for La Mer. And I always wished that India had something like this. This was 10 years ago. I moved back, continued working with Ernst & Young, and Credit Suisse was one of my clients, so heavy into data analysis, but I always had this creative side where I was like, you know, maybe there is a market for designing for luxury brands, which is not your large agency work, but somewhere in between, which is like super intimate, and I think that's how it came about. So
you were a consultant earlier?
I was in finance, I was a data analyst.
So. Wow. Wow, this is interesting. We've got IIT, we've got a consultant. Ritika, you want to go next?
Well, I have always been a designer. Sorry to kind of break the thread here, but I'm actually a graphic designer. But I've always been breathing design for many, many years. I've been in the industry, I think, of design for over 20 years now. But I've gone from a transition of graphic design, then into jewelry, and I had a brand for many, many years. And then somehow I've found myself in interiors. It's been since COVID, so a good number of years for that as well. I have very, my friends are very pushy. So I somehow found myself in interiors as well because they kept giving me projects and it somehow snowballed into something that I've really, really enjoyed doing. So yeah.
But you doodle as well, so we can put an artist cap as
Thanks.
as well. I noticed that.
Yes, I do doodle as well, and it's really fun. So that I do because it's just fun for me, and I think that's another outlet of art. And I've always doodled, so yeah, it's multiple things in the world of art and design. So
Okay. Amazing. Jasmine, what about you? I know you also have an interesting story.
Yeah, well, very straight cut. But first of all, thank you so much for coming here, everyone, and giving us this platform. So big kudos to Isha, Design Pataki and Design POV for really putting us out there. I think that's a very important point before anything else begins because we've got a platform and I think interior styling or storytelling is such a center stage now, the main character energy as they call it. So, well, I also did jewelry designing, and but then I did a formal course and training in just spatial makeover, and it was a home decor course, a diploma course. And when I realized that there is a big gap in the industry when it comes to the architects and the end users, where they really needed someone to kind of they wanted someone to bridge the gap between these two parts. And the clients were very happy, architects were very happy that they found someone who could do this. And that's when I started my own business, and then there's been no looking back. So I think we're all happy. It's all a win-win for everyone. So that's pretty much been my start.
Lovely. And Meeta, you've come all the way from Hyderabad for us to join us for this conversation. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey as well? Thank you very much. Your mic.
Thank you, Isha, for having me over. Is that fine?
Yeah.
So I run a styling studio back in Hyderabad, but now I do work across the country. But even I had a little story where I did my BCom and my interior design, and I worked with a firm as a wealth manager for a little time. But then just coincidentally, I bumped into a friend who was an architect and said, hey, look, why don't you finish this space for me? And once I did that, there was no looking back. So I think architects, there is as Jasmine said, there is a big gap in the industry between the architect and the final finished product of the house. So that's where I think we all are here as stylists.
Amazing, really interesting story. And Maitri, I'm going to ask you, because I feel this is very apt for you today, what does taste mean? And what do you think defines it today?
So, actually, for a lot of you who may not know, I'm an event designer. So, slightly, different from like an interior stylist. But I think taste is something which is acquired and built over time. I don't think it's something you inherit. So, for me, taste has always been extremely personal. It's something that, it's a place that I'll travel to and something that really resonates with me deeply from that place and that becomes a part of who I am. So I feel like taste is about individuality and being very true to who you are, not really settling for like trends. And I think that is something which is timeless. So taste has always been very me. Does it suit me? Will it suit me in like 10 years, 20 years? If the answer is like yes, then that's taste for me.
Sanya, what about you? What does taste mean to you?
I'll define in very straight single sentence. It's who you are. That is something, a taste. You cannot follow the trends. Basically, if you're following the trends, then that is not the taste. It reflects completely the personality of yours when you talk about the taste, and it's a mix of culture, designs, art, and where you are based out of. So that's how, for me, taste is all about. Yeah.
I completely agree. Ritika, what about you? I feel like we're going towards who you are with taste. What's authentic to oneself? Ritika, what's your take?
it is. I mean, it's definitely what is authentic to yourself, but I think it's also the courage to have a point of view. I think that taste is about discernment. It's not about luxury or trend-driven. You should have, I think, the ability to know what actually should go in a space. I mean, I'm talking purely from an interior point of view. but you should also have the ability to know what shouldn't. So I think that is part of what makes taste to me.
I mean, I completely agree. To have courage to do what you feel resonates with you is also interesting, considering you'll have so many clients you kind of have to convince sometimes or explain to them, and Pinterest images that come your way. So I completely understand. Jasmine, what about you? What are your thoughts?
Of course, I agree to a large part of what they just mentioned. But I also think taste is ever evolving, just as we humans are. Because who I was, I think when I started my journey, I don't think I have the same taste. So it's always evolving. And it's, of course, being true to yourself and being authentic. And a large part of it also comes from our socio-economic background, because we inherit all of that. We are constantly observing and absorbing these things. A lot of it also comes from the creative genes that I think I've inherited from my parents. And more than anything, I feel it's always pushing the boundaries, because the very identity of taste is not just you, but also encompassing so many other elements of what's happening around you, and also trying to take in the other person's perspective and then merging everything together and putting it out there on the table and saying, okay, here is a collective pool of something which we've all evolved at. So for me, taste is very and always evolving.
Meeta, what about you?
I agree with all of them.
Because
They've
we
said
know
it all.
the north, south, east, west, and you're dealing with the south. How does that change?
Yeah, you have to really educate, but South is very culturally rich. So there, when you're talking about art, they really want to bring that culture in. So they have already acquired that taste. They are all very well traveled, so you don't have to really educate them there. Because I think some of my clients really have traveled all across the world and picked up pieces themselves. So, it's learning for me too as to where they have got and what they have sourced from over years, which goes onto their walls. So I agree with all of them, and it's actually a courage to have a timeless piece on a wall which you can, after 10, 20 years, also say that, yes, this is what you have acquired.
That's amazing. And now, the most important question, the art of sourcing. That's what we're all here for. So, Ritika, I'm going to go with you for this one, put you on the spot. Tell us your go-to spots to source design, decor, and art. Give us your trade secrets. Top 3 would be ideal.
Ooh, top 3 is hard. But, I think all of us have our favorites. I think if you look at just Bombay, I love going to Hesperus, Phillips, and Farida Hossein Ali, if you're only giving me 3.
Get the last one.
Farida Hossein Ali.
Got it. All right.
Yeah.
Those
And
are
then
your top
obviously, in Bombay, if you're giving me top 3,
Okay.
if I have more options, I have a couple more.
You can throw one in from outside Bombay. How about that?
A ceramic artist in Goa. Her name is Khushbu, and one is Nirmohi, who's a young artist who I absolutely love. Yeah.
Love styling with this.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Sanya, what about you?
I would say I'm not justifying by taking 3 names. It's all about the cities, I would say. I'm coming from a very heritage city, Ahmedabad, which is cultural, and they have a lot of textile expertise, and the diamond city. So it's really difficult to name one, but yes, Ahmedabad has its own block printings and the carving. Then again, the Rajasthan, Jodhpur has different kind of carvings and the sourcing, the wooden stuff. Of course, Bombay has a good market. I don't believe that I should go to some particular store. I like to go to the godowns. I like to go to godowns and pick the stuff from 10 by 10 kholi mein se, wo 1000 cheezon mein se, you have to pick something. That's what all about the art of styling and the sourcing. It's not from the ready store you are picking up. That's what not I do. Apart from that, Delhi is also there, a very good market, and Kochi is the best market, I would say. Of course, so it's not justifying by taking 3 names for me.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, which is a good bazaar or a chor bazaar equivalent that you love going to?
Sorry?
Like a chor bazaar equivalent, like a bazaar or like Karai Kori?
I like to go Sunday markets. I like to go
Sunday
to
markets.
Sunday markets.
Sunday
are there.
markets.
Sunday markets. So
Okay.
there is a chor bazaar kind of a market in every city. Some cities have a Monday market, Wednesday market. That way they have the market. Yes. In Ahmedabad, we have a Sunday market. In Baroda, we have like a Friday market.
Okay.
So they have like all this antique stuff. You'll never find those kind of pieces in the stores. And you have to go in like 10 by 10 room and you have to figure out like lot of things. Then of course we have big names like Jain Handicrafts and Gujarat Handicrafts. So they have acres and acres of like the go downs, and you just like sweat yourself and get the best piece, and they're like, ye khol diya hai, madam, chale jaiye. So that's what I love, and that's the art of sourcing instead of picking the stuff from the already procured things.
Got
So
it.
that's all about me.
This Sunday market, Friday market is something new I've learned and very interesting. I don't think Bombay we have that.
Chor Bazaar you have.
In Chor Bazaar we do, but I think it shuts only on one day. That's about it. Other than that, it's pretty much open through the week.
But certain cities like in Gujarat, like certain cities have some days, Friday, Saturday and Sunday markets.
Got it.
And Monday
Interesting.
also.
And Monday also. People are working on Monday.
Yes.
Maitri, what about you?
So for us, because we're into events, right? Every event and the brief is so different. So we work a lot with like the local artisans or artists who sort of help us source and give us the brief for that specific event. For example, recently we were doing an event for the government of Meghalaya, and we obviously wanted to work with the artisans of that community. And through the process, I learned so much about their silk, which is a cruelty-free silk. And now we've started incorporating Eri silk into a lot of tableware and linen that we source for almost like any event, because the fact that it's sourced it's like cruelty-free just makes me feel like, okay, there's that my responsible part for the environment. But other than that, Ikai SI in you know, of course, like supplies throughout India has the most amazing section of like artisans across India, and their craft and designs are so contemporary. I love Nomad, which is this beautiful boutique store in Kala Ghoda, which has the most amazing colors, rich of textiles. So a lot of like our tableware is sourced from there. And very recently, Nilaya Anthology, I feel like that place is like a treasure hunt in itself, because yes, you want to go to markets locally, and flea markets and vintage markets in like Paris whenever I'm traveling is definitely a must. But in India, I feel like Nilaya has done a very good job of bringing all of those artists and their products in one place. So I feel like, for sure, yeah.
It's a very different sourcing, of course. Very interesting. And you went into my next question. I'll come back there with the craft and conscience. So we'll come back. Jasmine, what about you? Your go-to spots for sourcing?
So even like I agree with Sanya, you know, today we are so like, I would say the sourcing is so algorithm led that today we all are kind of just looking at the same things collectively, and everyone's doing the same thing. So the real thing for me is, I think like charity begins at home, so sourcing begins at home. So I would first dig into what my clients have, what do they have to bring to the table, and how can I fine tweak that first and give it a whole new perspective and a story, and then add more layers to it. And like she said, that if it's so curated and up there, it's like I feel, what am I doing as a client? Not to take away from any of the stores that you guys mentioned. Of course, we always use them and they're doing a fantastic job. But I feel that we need to do deeper in terms of how do I tell the client story, and how can it be so different through individual source pieces which are like just one-off, or encouraging the client. Like I would assign them homeworks if they're traveling, as if you're doing to Australia or Switzerland or Dubai, why don't you pick up something for the bar cabinet and come back and we do like just a tea or a bar console kind of a thing, where you get to pick pieces but I'll help you. So it's like a drawing board, like a vision board for them, and they get to do the work and also pool in. So that's when I feel that sourcing is more fun. But of course, like she mentioned, Nilaya is just blending all the crafts essentially across the continents. So it's a very rich place to go and source. And of course, online platforms like House of Things is doing a fantastic job.
Lovely. I was waiting for someone to give us an online website. Yeah, and you went into a little sustainability where you're using your clients' old pieces as well.
I'm all for that.
Yeah, so we'll come back again to that question. Meeta, what about you?
Yeah, so I would agree with all of them. In the little streets of Rajasthan, Jodhpur, Udaipur, even Kochi, even streets of Hyderabad, like, you know, you might pick up some nice Bidri art and things like that. But one little clue I would like to give is even Bangkok, the Chata Chowk market, the weekend market is amazing. But I learned that with a client of mine. she took me and she said, come, I'll just show you the little treasures that that market carries. And they get from the French, from France, they get very beautiful pieces which are not seen around anywhere, and some from
Chatuchak market, that very
Chatuchak
cheap
market.
sort
Yes.
of,
No, but it's not cheap.
It's not cheap?
It's not cheap. So you can pick up cheap and expensive. The
So
weekend
the
market,
Lungini market or the night market.
the night market too. Yeah. So they get a lot of pieces from France, and some amazing stuff. And like, because in Hyderabad the homes are like 12,000, 18,000, 20,000 square feet that I really have to fill the space. So you have to look all over India and out of India. Yeah, so that's one little secret.
That's interesting. That's a good secret that you just told us
Yeah,
today.
yeah.
And of course, no conversation is complete if we don't talk about craft and sustainability. So, Jasmine, tell us about how you sort of incorporate that in when you're styling for a client as well, and which are interesting crafts you're working with currently.
So, when it comes to sustainability, I think that buzzword is very common, where we always want to think of sustainability as just going green or always being very conscious of the materials we use. But let's face it, it's not always possible. But sustainability, also the other angle of sustainability is using what you have, using the resources at hand and giving it a whole new perspective, a new twist. So for this client example, we did their home, and they had a Haveli in Gujarat. And they have a lot of old utensils, and these, in the olden days, women used to wear these kachli, or what blouse they call it. It's like literally this tiny. So the grandmother used to wear something this small, and it's beautifully embroidered with modal silk on one hand, one arm, and the other is not, because that's where the pallu comes. The embroidery is only on one side, and beautiful strings and handmade tassels at the end. And there was another embroidered cap in velvet with antique gold. So they were like, this is what we have. And I said, just bring out everything. It's like, but this is of no use. What are you going to do with this? I said, no, hold on. Let's create like a legacy wall and build a story of generations, because you've brought all of this from your Haveli in Gujarat. Why don't we put pieces that you've collected and we'll pick up along the way, plus let's frame this into a box frame and use it like a beautiful story wall and own it proudly. So I think before we look far and beyond, we can look within and work with what we have. So I think sustainability is first using what you've got.
That's so interesting. People think sometimes it's beneath them to use things that they have, or that it can't be refurbished or it can't be fixed. So it's really interesting you're doing that. Meeta, what about you? How do you incorporate this storytelling in your projects?
With sustainability? Yeah, so today sustainability is very subjective. Sometimes sustainable brands might not be getting what we want on the table, but there is one such brand that I work with, which is Taro Collective.
I didn't get that. Taro Collective.
Taro Collective. It is small, but they use some very beautiful materials and very meaningful. So I think we can look there. Yeah.
All right. Maitri, what about you? Craft and sustainability. What craft do you use, and how do you use it consciously when you're styling? Like how you spoke about the Aries silk. Right.
So I think, to talk about sustainability, like everyone else said, I feel like the word is almost abused, because it's just a buzzword which is thrown in, oh, this is so sustainable. And I think with events, you always want to create something which is new. So sometimes it's very difficult to sort of reuse, because a client's brief differs constantly, right? So for me, I believe in sustainable practices. For example, we use a lot of foam, like floral foam. And that kind of is a massive waste in the landfill.
Oasis that is used.
Your oasis. So we found this place in Karnataka which essentially uses this and repurposes them as food for construction. So it's like a fuel of sorts which is repurposed into construction. So we've now contacted them to see how we can actually, not only ours, because ours is like 1/10, like a very minuscule amount, but how can we consciously and collectively take wastes from a lot of our partners and other event designers to contribute to that particular aspect. Also, there's this lady called Garbage Goddess who I follow. She's in New York, and what she does is again very similar, where she will break down the waste. So it's not a very generic answer to your question about what sustainable brands do you work with, because with events, the nature of our work is so transient. It's not very permanent. So we focus on making the processes more I would say, conscious in terms of the products that we sort of consume. Also, I'm not sure if this fully like directly ties in, but after our events are done, and this was around COVID, we used to take a lot of our wastes and sort of give them to policemen or hospitals where you used to send flowers. Of course, eventually you realize that you have to treat them before sending them, but these are small sort of practices that we encourage and